Professor Andrey Ostrovsky, who is Deputy Director of the Institute for Far Eastern Studies in Moscow, Russia.
As for Hong Kong, I can say that there are some problems in Hong Kong because the growth rates in the Chinese People's Republic in mainland China is higher than in Hong Kong, because Hong Kong's economic possibility just is not enough because there are some problems with Hong Kong economic potential. For example, as far as I know, there are only 2 or maybe 3 branches of economy. I mean, just light industry and textile industry. And Hong Kong earlier was just a hub for trade, that's trade market for Englishmen, as a haven, more or less safe from typhoons and fire winds. But now Hong Kong, why China was eager to join, to receive Hong Kong? Because now, as far as you know, there is stock exchange market and Hong Kong banking system. And the Hong Kong banking system and stock exchange market was a kind of a link between the Chinese People's Republic or mainland China and the capitalist world. Now there is any other situation, and after handover of Hong Kong to China, now after this, China, there is a special management system of Hong Kong. I mean, one country, 2 regimes, Yigu so-called in Chinese. And now there are, for 15 years, we have this situation when China and Hong Kong, they are developing side by side with features of this coexistence.
So, Professor, who benefits more, Hong Kong from being part of China or China having Hong Kong as part of it?
Maybe both of them, but China has much more advantages than Hong Kong.
You know, a couple of years ago, I was at the borderline between Hong Kong and the province of Guangzhou, and I saw that near the checkpoint, there were so many people bringing foodstuffs and utensils from China to Hong Kong. It was a sort of shock for me.
In China, price is much lower than in Hong Kong, as far as you know. If you visit the same border checking point in Russia, you'll see the same situation.
Yeah. Does it mean that the common people in Hong Kong still have problems?
No, but their salary is higher than in China.
But the prices are higher.
Prices are higher and salaries are higher. And wages are higher. That's nature.
And still, it's impossible for a common Chinese to go freely to Hong Kong. They need special documents, special visas.
Special permit. Every citizen of China must have a special permit for entering Hong Kong.
Why? Why is it so?
I've already said that now there is a situation, 1 country, 2 systems.
Professor, now tell me, what is the policy of Beijing towards Hong Kong? Because, strangely enough, certain surveys indicate that the popularity of the Chinese Communist Party has been falling over these 15 years. Just let me quote it in a poll this month by Hong Kong University researchers. 37% of Hong Kongers say they distrust Beijing. And this is definitely the highest level since the 1st of July 1997. So, what is the policy of the party?
Yeah, on Wednesday, the central government announced a huge package of policies to boost economic and cultural relations between the Hong Kong and mainland.
Yes.
And it's really important. For example, the central government will encourage foreign investors to use China's currency, the yuan.
Yes, for the last 2 or 3 years, China encourages foreign investments to use renminbi, yuan, in order to invest money into Chinese economy.
It also covers cooperation in trade, finance, education, science and technology and tourism, and especially cooperation between Hong Kong and neighboring Guangdong province. So do you think Hong Kong needs China's help now?
Yes,
maybe because of the financial crisis.
China's help, because if you see Hong Kong city, and I mean buildings, and tonight they are some shabby a little, because after Hong Kong's handover to China, the most part of there were not so much investment into Hong Kong's economy, because Hong Kong should use their own budget. But Hong Kong's budget is not so much. It is very difficult to compare budget of Hong Kong with the budget of the Chinese People's Republic, with central budget, or maybe even with the budget of Guangdong province.
But I think that Hong Kong is also very important for China. as a window, as a showcase.
Nature. I've just, from the beginning of our discussion, I've told you about Hong Kong's role, for example, financial role, cultural role, and maybe transport role. Because naturally, Hong Kong is focal point for China in order to keep connections with the outer world, with international market in any way.
Well, but then it means that Beijing should exert more skills in trying to contain Hong Kong uneasiness, because definitely Hong Kong is... Look, it is only 15 years since the handover was performed, and in those 15 years the popularity ratings of the Chinese government are going down, the wealth gap is growing, and prices are up. So definitely it is an impact of the economic crisis, but on the other hand there are certain challenges that still need to be tackled. And I still keep wondering whether money alone could do the trick.
Yes, naturally there are some challenges for Hong Kong and even for China with its relations with Hong Kong, naturally. But nevertheless, what could Hong Kong do with this situation?
Professor, tell me, what is the general Beijing policy towards the neighboring territories?
As far as you know, for a long time, Hong Kong was a kind of laboratory for Taiwan. Now, when China has the negotiations with Taiwan, they used to say that Hong Kong is developing. And do you agree with our position, one country, two systems? And Hong Kong is just an example of this situation. And now the situation is as follows, that if Hong Kong people does not believe in Beijing authority, that's why maybe there are some problems with Taiwan.
Yes, that's it.
Taiwan.
That's the point I'm trying to make.
Some people say that China makes Hong Kong sort of showcase for the entire world, but first and foremost for Taiwan, as a symbol of its one state, two policy system, or simply saying carrot, that the big tasty carrot can be used for Taiwan. But it isn't absolutely so, because they apply their special policies towards Taiwan. And almost at the same time, President Hu Jintao brings this package of incentives to Hong Kong. Another package was announced in Beijing, especially for Taiwan, easing visa restrictions in both directions, encouraging tourism, and particularly encouraging more capital investment from the island to mainland. Which is more important, Beijing opened a credit line of $95 billion for Taiwan to go to China. And right now there's 1 million citizens or people from Taiwan working in China already. Taiwanese are almost split half to half on the possibility of peaceful reunification with China. I think that what's going in Hong Kong and what will be going in Taiwan will result in peaceful reunification of China, in creation of the so-called Greater China. There is a special term, Greater China. And Greater China will mean almost the same as Great China. China will be greater with this Greater China. But I think the prospects of peaceful reunification with Taiwan are not very bright because of this containment of China policy. Because right now there is no security agreement between China and America, but still Americans look at Taiwan as a sort of unsinkable aircraft carrier. And I'm sure that if the problem of returning Hong Kong under Chinese jurisdiction was existing today, Americans wouldn't encourage Great Britain to do it. They would object giving Hong Kong...
They would advise them not to
Not,
do that.
because it could be also a very, very good...
That's an important strategic location.
It's a good port. American aircraft carriers used to enter, and their sort of intelligence hub.
That's a unique deep-water port, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, exactly. Good for pirates in the 18th century and good for aircraft carriers in the 21st century.
The warships have changed a little bit over that time.
Yeah, but Hong Kong is still there.
And the deep water hub is still there. That's very interesting.
Yes. But now last 15 years has passed, and now we can make some conclusions on this issue.
What kind of conclusions are you arriving at?
The results of this handover to China, just Hong Kong. Now, is the situation in Hong Kong better than earlier? What kind of advantages has Hong Kong received? That's the problem.
So, what is your assessment?
Now, just from one hand, Hong Kong has received any advantages in comparison with the period before. But from the other hand, there are some problems for Hong Kong, I mean, in political sphere. Because earlier there were a lot of parties, and now, just in spite of the fact that there are some parties, some political parties, but everybody knows that the Chinese Communist Party now is a leading, a ruling party there, in spite of the fact that there are equally one country, two systems.
Professor, but if Hong Kong would stay British, do you think their economic situation would be better than nowadays?
It should be better because the situation in Hong Kong itself, especially its economic situation, its economic position, is very important for China. Because Hong Kong is so-called is a kind of a link with the whole world. For example, I can say a few figures on Hong Kong, on China's investment. I mean, China's investment inward, more than 70% of investment from abroad, it's from Hong Kong. I mean, China's investment into the international market, more than 67% is of investment, their investment into Hong Kong's economy. And that's statistical data for today.
More than 60% of foreign investment?
Two-thirds of investment from abroad and to abroad
comes from Hong Kong.
That's connections with China and Hong Kong.
Oh, it's very important then.
Yes, it's very important, and that's why China will do its best to solve Hong Kong's problem, and that's why Hu Jintao will due to arrive to Hong Kong, and now just he is going to China. I mean, the Chinese People's Republic will implement some measures in order to speed up the economy of Hong Kong, because it's very important for China.
Right. Well, Professor, thank you so much. And just to remind you, our guest speaker was Professor Andrey Ostrovsky, Deputy Director of the Institute for Far Eastern Studies in Moscow, Russia.